I'm gonna catch some flack for this one, I know, because we're gonna fix it in post. And specifically, we're gonna take this poorly shot, poorly lit newborn RAW file, and we're gonna turn it into this final image using Lightroom.
My name is Pi, and I'm one of the founders of Lynn and Jersa Photography and SLRLounge.com. We're teaming up with Adorama to bring you a new series of photography tutorials called Master Your Craft right here on Adorama TV. So let's dive in.
Hello, 朋友们. That's friends in Chinese. My name is Pi. Welcome back to Adorama TV. This week, it's all about post-production. Specifically, we're going for that light, airy pastel vibe, and I'm gonna show you how to apply it to an image that was shot not so well. And I know first what you're thinking. So let's just begin this with a little disclaimer. No, I am not telling you to fix it in post. What I do want you to understand is there's certain looks, okay? This bright, airy, pastel sort of filmic vibe lends itself to images like this that are kind of shot imperfectly, okay? So it works very well on scenes like this. Number two, understanding this is important because I'm just out on a family hike, okay? I don't have really much gear with me. I don't want to spend all this time. I don't want to lug out my lighting stuff. Knowing that this look lends itself to a imperfectly shot photograph is great because I can shoot the image and go, hey, you know what? I know exactly how I'm going to edit this. I know what it's going to look like. It's still going to look great, and so forth. So get it right in camera, but understand what you can do in post. So when you can't and you don't have the tools or the time to do it the way that you want it, you still know how to get to a great result. So that said, now let's go ahead and start the tutorial. This is a great time to go ahead and pause the video, download the exercise file so you guys can follow along. This is my lovely daughter. Let me first tell you and kind of show you with the behind the scenes of what I was going for. So we saw this little patch of ferns while we were on the hike and we're like, oh, that's so cute. We're gonna place down a little, mat or just a little blanket and place Josie on it. And yes, this is my adorable daughter, which I can't get enough of taking her pictures. But I framed Josie behind this kind of brighter area of the background. So you'll notice here, let's go ahead and just grab the raw file by itself. I'm gonna turn the lights back on by pressing L. That's literally turning the lights back on in Lightroom. So this is the raw file. Compositionally, I'm getting down low and I'm framing her head against the bright area of the background. So it kind of naturally has this vignette around her and using the leaves to kind of create natural framing. So I shot this on a Canon R6 using the 70-200. We're at f2.8, 92mm, 1/500th, and ISO 200. If I take this file, okay, so this is completely zeroed out. I'm gonna create a virtual copy of this. If I take this file and just brighten the exposure, you get this nasty kind of look. And this is why it's really kind of poorly lit in camera, right? When we brighten it up, her face was in the shadows, so we brightened it up dramatically. And now, once it's bright enough, the background just completely blows out. You have these really nasty transitions. So how do we get to this spot? Well, this is actually using one of our Visual Flow presets, but I wanna show you guys how this works without any presets. And then I'll demonstrate at the end like how to design your own presets, or if you want to look into Visual Flow, you can. So how do you get to this place where the colors look so much more natural, the highlights kind of blend? Well, let's go back to this bright image. And what we'll do is on this next virtual copy, we're gonna hit previous right here, just so we have this zeroed out image with just brighter exposure. The first place that I like to start with an image like this is actually in the tone curve. A lot of us want to try to preserve highlights and try to kind of preserve whites and do all that kind of stuff. You're gonna end up with just nastiness. It doesn't look good by doing this, okay? What we wanna do is tone down the highlights by coming to the tone curve. I want you to select the point curve. So what we're gonna start with is pulling down on the white point. Now what this is gonna do is all those crazy bright whites, they now turn to a bright gray. It makes them more subtle. You can see that in the histogram. There's another way of going about this by pulling them to the left, but that's a little bit more advanced, so let's not worry about that for now. Then we're gonna go and pull down the actual kind of mid-tone highlights. We're gonna raise a little bit of the mid-tone shadows, and then I'm gonna do the same thing on the blacks where I pull up on the black clipping, and then we're gonna pull down on the shadow side. So we kind of are creating this a little bit slightly wonky curve that's softening up the overall highlights. And if I turn this on and off, you can see what's happening. Immediately we soften up the highlights quite a bit. We turn that super bright white to really more of a gray. We also turn the deepest blacks to a dark gray as well. So we're reducing overall contrast. Now, if you'd like, come back up here and start doing a little bit of tweaks here. So I like to now kind of raise the whites a bit so that those bright whites sort of blow out and preserve a little bit of the darker highlights by pulling the highlights down, so we kind of get some of these leaves back. We're also going to go ahead and add just a bit of blacks to the image. Okay. And I'm going to also raise the shadows just a little. So now if you compare these two, you notice that immediately it's quite a bit better. The other issue though now is color. The color just kind of looks nasty, right? The greens, the yellows that are all blown out. We even have hints of blue that really aren't adding much to the photograph. So our second step to correcting this is really going to be done in the HSL. I don't want you to spend time here using, vibrance and saturation, because these are going to be very global adjustments, and I would recommend touching those after the fact. So instead, what we're going to do is drop down to HSL. What I'm going to do in the reds is I'm actually going to shift them more towards the pink side. So we're dealing with hue right now. This is the actual color tone, right? I'm going to take the oranges as well to that side. This is kind of helping us to get the reds and oranges a little bit more towards the pink side to kind of negate the green reflecting in. So there's a lot of green coming in from all those leaves. We're going to take the yellow side. Let's go actually towards teal, because we're going to bring the greens quite a bit up. I'm going to bring the greens towards this really sort of strong teal side. And then we're going to bring the aquas again towards this side. The blues I'm going to shift towards teal. Again, what we're doing here is unifying color by kind of pulling the hues towards each other to kind of make it so there's not that many colors in the scene, right? So we're reducing the color by bringing the hues together. The purples and magentas are okay where they're at. Next thing we're going to do is go to saturation. And with saturation, the main things that I want to do is I really want to pull down a bit on the yellows. I really want to attack those greens and make them much, much more subtle. So we're going to go down quite a bit on the yellows and the greens. On the oranges, we're going to keep it right about there. Reds, we're going to keep right about where it's at too. I might reduce a little bit of the yellows and oranges because we can add back a little bit of warmth overall if we want to. So let's keep it right there. I'm going to reduce aquas. I definitely want to reduce blues because, again, I don't want those colors to be like really shining through in the image. There's not really any purples or magentas here, but usually I would end up adjusting those as well. For luminance, we're going to again look at these color tones, and usually I like to take the greens sort of a little bit brighter. Same thing with the yellows, so it kind of leaves them as this kind of bright tone. But once again, remember our curve is eliminating the bright whites. So the more that I pull this down, the more we kind of get this subtle brightness to it. So if you ever want to adjust the white point, just pull that down a bit and you can tweak that quite a bit. So that's mostly everything on this side. And now I can go back here and I can adjust my temperature a little bit back up. I can kind of go and find the right balance here, adjust contrast and exposure, and we're gonna pull this down just a little bit and we get to a much better place. So look at this shot versus this shot. So we can totally preserve an image by simply going back and kind of reworking. Now, is this ideal? Not necessarily, but it's great to know that this look and vibe is easy to pull off in post, and you can take what we just did and save it out and have it ready to go. Now, I want to show you, essentially, this is the pastel preset that we have, right? Most everything is very similar, but I want to show you a way of doing this. So if you like the look, save what we just did out, okay? Next, what I want you guys to do is, whenever you're creating a preset, I want you to develop those presets based on lighting conditions. So I made a patented process for how we develop lighting condition based presets for visual flow. What it consists of is identifying different types of light and then testing the preset to make sure that it looks consistent in that light. So the way that I edit, instead of doing all of that, I would go to this scene and go, hey, this is hard light. So we have hard lighting basically going on in the scene. And I want to go for the pastel look because that's what's going to fit the image. So I would go to the pastel pack and I've already got all these presets dialed out based on the type of lighting condition that we shot with. So we're just going to select hard light. I'm going to raise the exposure a bit and I'm going to dial in a white balance and my contrast, and I'm done. So that's the goal of lighting condition based development, is that the presets are already tuned to each lighting condition. You can figure out a system of doing this on your own and saving them out on your own. You guys can check out Visual Flow, but that's the purpose, is that when you encounter a scene, you jump straight to the lighting condition, and then all you have to do from there is just adjust white balance, contrast, and exposure. This is how we get our workflow to the place where we can edit entire weddings in less than a day, where we can deliver consistent results regardless of the shooting circumstances, everything. I hope this helps you to understand a little bit more about the flexibility that you have in post. Now remember, you want to make sure that you're shooting these raw. You want to make sure that you retain as much information as possible in that raw file whenever you're going to basically be shooting an image like this, to be able to go and say, okay, I'm going to make this that bright pastel vibe. But when you encounter a scene, you're like, I don't have the right tools to get to the place where I want to, or I don't have the time, or whatever it might be, understand that this is a great look. It'll get you to an awesome looking image, and you don't have to have a perfect raw file. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, I'd love for you to comment below. Let me know what you think about the final image, the overall technique, what you all learned, maybe what you guys would like to learn next. And be sure to subscribe to the Adorama TV channel if you guys want to be notified of each of the awesome videos that our creators are putting up each day. Then go ahead and turn on notifications. In the meantime, y'all can find me, DM me at PieJirsa on Instagram, as well as at BornUncreative on TikTok. That's it for me, y'all. I'm gonna go back to working on some more cute newborn photos. Okay, peace.